Republican Congressman Michael Burgess now, who was among those questioning Secretary Chu. Congressman, good to see you. Do you believe Chu when he says that no political influence came into play with Solyndra?
Well, that was his statement. I got to tell you, David, it was tough to watch. I mean, here's the smartest man in Washington, D.C., and it's like he didn't know about all this stuff going on, or he was trying to cover for someone. And, you know, it's up to people who watch the hearing to make up their minds which it is, but it was hard to watch. Well,
Congressman, I got to ask you again, though, what is in your mind as you watched him say that? Did you believe him?
No, and I mean, I kept trying to offer him a chance to come clean or at least address the American people. I said, look, the subordination issue, you get a tortured legal opinion that goes against the spirit of the law that was passed in 2005, and you want us to believe that you believed that you really were okay doing that? Tell people you're sorry that it happened, at least. Or are you going to go to your boss, President Obama, and say, I think I actually exceeded the authority of the law. I realize there's no penalty written into law for that, but I would offer my resignation as because of what happened here. No sense of remorse. And again, he's the smartest man in the city, so you know he knew that these things were wrong. I mean, this is the man that holds he's the civilian holder of our nuclear secrets.
Right.
This is
by the way, he won
the
Nobel Prize for Science, so the guy is very smart. But if you and other congressmen think that we have a Secretary of Energy who is lying to Congress under oath, shouldn't he resign?
Well, that's obviously my feeling, and I conveyed that during the hearing today. I know not every member of Congress feels that way, and it's a shame because he's a brilliant mind. And you know, once again, we have the Obama administration, which has sort of skated close to the edge, and unfortunately, I feel like Dr. Chu is going to end up being the scapegoat in this exchange.
All right. Well, another thing that he said a lot of things during the exchange, but one thing he said, well, let's just play the SOT of when he was talking about why Solyndra wasn't cut off when it was failing.
Had a half-completed factory, and it was a difficult decision. We had two choices. We either had to stop the loan, which would make Solyndra go into immediate bankruptcy because with a half-empty factory, half-completed factory, or we could say we can continue on the contract of the loan, which was to build this factory. Once the factory was complete, there was Solyndra would have a fighting chance.
All right, so the point is that you could either cost the taxpayers $500 million or half of that, and he chose $500 million. I mean, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense.
No, every mother's son knows that you don't throw good money after bad. I mean, that's what you learned at your mother's knee in your childhood. And yet here we had the Secretary of Energy, a Nobel Prize laureate, as you say, who felt that sunk costs weren't really sunk costs. Well, of course they were. And this could only turn out badly, and it's going to be worse. But this sort of magical thinking that, well, maybe if we get another $75 million in there, go ahead and subordinate the taxpayer debt, this will all turn out okay, or at least we'll get through the next election before anyone finds us out. That's what really hurt about all of this.
All right, did we get any closer to knowing more about how the decision was made to subordinate taxpayers to Obama contributors?
Well, on the record, you have the Secretary's position that he got a legal opinion. What he got was an email, not a legal memorandum, and I think that now that is going to be the focus of some intense legal debate over whether or not that was accurate. Again, my position, it was wrong, and he knew it was wrong. I gave him an opportunity to apologize. I think he does need to go to his boss and say, look, clearly I kind of overstepped the bounds of the law. There is no penalty written into law, and that's interesting, and it's certainly an oversight by Congress 5 years ago, 6 years ago, when they created this loan program. But at the very least, he should go to his employer or his boss. His employer is the American people, but he should go to his boss and say, do you need my resignation because this has happened? I think that would be the decent thing for him to do, and I actually hope that happens.
Well, there is the other question now about this so-called energy czar, the Department of Energy czar, that our own Elizabeth McDonald reported on yesterday, as to whether or not a lot of the Solyndra loan was from the 2005 Energy Act, but the question of whether the energy czar diverted a lot of the money for stimulus spending into some of these failed projects. Did you learn anything more about that?
Well, exactly right. It was the marriage of the loan guarantees with the stimulus program that really caused the problems here. And certainly there were some emails where you got to believe they thought that the climate change, the cap and trade bill was going to pass, and they'd be able to sell all kinds of carbon credits to electrical generating plants, and they'd be awash in cash. Didn't happen. One of the other emails says, well, let's go to the Bank of Washington and get the head of the General Services Administration to require our solar panels on top of every federal building and on top of buildings with Department of Defense. That, in fact, links us back to the White House, because where were those conversations being held and with whom were they being held? So the subpoenas that went down to the White House 2 weeks ago, I think we got some information today that tells us we're not through looking at this.
Absolutely. A lot more to be done. Congressman Michael Burgess, thank you very much for coming in.